Chair. I'd like to thank Deputy McGrath for allowing me going ahead of him. Thanks for the statement, Minister. Minister, I'll be very brief. First, I just wanted to congratulate you and your officials. From the outside, or half outside, or whatever amount of outside we are in opposition, it seems that you and your officials have done an excellent job. I mean, obviously, one or two things didn't go exactly as one might have hoped, but I think, particularly in your area on Ecofin, you have been operating under in a very constrained environment with domestic politics at play in Germany, for example, coming up to the election. So I just wanted to say I think you and the officials have done a great job, and I've heard as much from officials in Brussels repeatedly. They've been very impressed with the Irish team, both at a political level and at an official level. So I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly. One quick ask, Minister, on the bank resolution mechanism. I've read through the technical note from the European Union. It's dense and complicated. And I wonder, could I ask that your officials prepare for the committee a note explaining exactly how a resolution may happen. We've got phase 1 where there's 8% bail-in, and then phase 2 where there's 5% and so forth. Certainly what I'd find very useful is 1 or 2 worked examples of a theoretical bank to show. So I wonder if it would be possible to get that. I think I'd find it very useful in understanding what is a very complicated mechanism. And then secondly, the one very quick question, Minister, when you were before the Ecofin meeting, you were talking about, and forgive me if I have your position wrong, my understanding of what your position was, which I agreed with, was that you were going to seek that depositors, certainly small depositors, took precedence over senior bondholders. I wasn't able to figure that out from the technical note. And can I just ask before I go, is that something that was achieved, or will depositors, normal depositors and senior bondholders stay on an equal legal footing going forward?
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Donnelly, for your good wishes, and congratulations to my officials in particular. Well worthy of the congratulations they received both here and in Brussels. The bank resolution mechanism is quite complex, I suppose, because it's a new concept and there are new terms being used. But we'll certainly I'll ask my officials to get you a user-friendly paper which breaks down the ideas. But if you think of it this way, just very briefly for a minute or two, you remember the concept too big to fail. Now, the reason too big to fail was in the public consciousness, especially in the United States, was that you were too big to fail because if you were allowed to fail, you brought the sovereign down as well. So that's why it was too big to fail. So the opening position is nobody can be too big to fail anymore. So that means that every bank that goes bust must be resolved. And instead of calling on the taxpayers to bail out banks, now the assets of the impaired bank will be used as a bail-in mechanism to liquefy the assets to repair the hole in the banks. That's the general kind of principle. Now, in doing that then, the bail-inable assets are in a hierarchy. So it starts with the equity, then junior bondholders, then senior bondholders. Now, when it comes to depositors, up to 100,000, there'll be a guarantee. So deposits up to 100,000 will be sacrosanct, and they'll be exempt from bail-in. But then there'll be preference given to other depositors. So if you distinguish between exemption and preference, so if you think of up to 100,000 guaranteed and exempt, and then if you think of an order of preference, which would run as individuals with deposits over 100,000 would have a preference over corporate, for example. So the idea would be that the preference would be given to what they call natural persons in law with deposits of over 100,000. That preference would also be given to SMEs who had money on deposits, and that the first line of depositors that would be bail-inable would be corporate deposits of large corporations with large holdings. So that's the way it runs on the deposit side.
Just for the SMEs and for the normal deposits over 100,000, will they now have preference over senior bondholders, or will they still rank the same as senior bondholders?
They will. The legal link and the pari passu link between senior bondholders and depositors has been broken, and all deposits will move to a lower level in the hierarchy of bail-inable assets, like we discussed here previously. But within that, it has been nuanced and refined more within that, and a differentiation has been made between natural persons with big deposits, meaning over 100,000, SMEs as against large corporations. And we can get that paper that's requested, and we'll do that. Just a brief go at the 8% and the 5% and so on. The way it runs is this: if you take the bank's balance sheet, bank goes down, the bank is bust, the bank needs rescue. It can't manage without help, all right? And there's a resolution authority which organises the bail-in. Now, if the impairment in the bank is equal to 8% of its balance sheet, then all the rescue is by bail-in. Okay? If the impairment goes beyond 8% of the balance sheet, you go to the next phase. And the next phase is the next 5% of balance sheet. An amount of money equivalent to the next 5% of balance sheet can access funds elsewhere. Now, the elsewhere would be a resolution fund which the sovereign might have, or the ESM, if you could access the ESM. So that's the next phase of it. Now, in a very bad situation, like say AIB here, where it goes beyond the 8+10, so there's still impairment beyond 13% of the balance sheet, it goes back again to bail-in, and the resolution authority might return to the senior bondholders and take an additional haircut, or the ESM could be directly accessed at that point. In the first phase, in the 5%, it would be indirect involvement by the ESM, because it would be the sovereign that would have to apply. But by the time you come to the tranche beyond the 13%, if such a case would arise in extremis, then the application could be made by the institution directly to the ESM if it was recapitalisation it required. So that's generally it.